Where did this come from? Where does Omer Shem Tov and Machek and countless other simple Jews we've read about, we've heard about, that are willing and were sacrificing their life, where did they get this strength from? The Baal HaTanya, founder of Hasidut Chabad, writes about it. In his Tanya in Likutei Amarim, in chapter 18, the Baal HaTanya expands on the extraordinary strength within a Jew in order for him not to become a heretic, not to betray his God. And he talks about how the soul of a Jew is unique, where they acquired it as a result of being descendants of our Avot, our patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, who were the chariot of HaShem, what they call the Merkava. And Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov transmitted to their descendants this blessing forever of a nefesh, a ruach, and a neshama from the holy 10 sfirot. Now, this means, says the Tanya, that even the most worthless of worthless men and the sinners of Israel are thus endowed at the time of marital union with at any rate a nefesh de nefesh of malchut da'asiyah, a royalty in the world of action, which is the lowest grade of holiness in the world of asiyah. Nevertheless, since the latter of the 10 holy sfirot, since it's the last of the 10 sfirot, it's compounded of them all, including chokhmah and so on. In so many words, the spiritual makeup of a Jew is different. Now, what does that translate to, says the Tanya? Therefore, same chapter 18, even the most worthless of worthless and the transgressors of the Israelites, in the majority of cases, sacrificed their lives for the sanctity of God's name and suffer harsh tortures rather than deny the one God, although they be boors and illiterates and ignorant of God's greatness. Here he's telling us that your average Jew, that may be a sinner, may drive on Shabbat, may be a thief, maybe somebody that you're not even sure he's Jewish just by the way he looks, still has the power within his soul to make sacrifices unlike anyone else in mankind. You're never going to see a Chinese person sacrifice their life in order to protect their belief in communism or Buddha or any of the beliefs there. You're not going to see people in America willing to sacrifice their life for their belief in Yoshke or in Islam or anything else. They may fight for it, they may argue about it, they may vote, they may censor, but they're not willing to die for it. Now, even if you can say, yeah, but some, look, there's historical proofs, there's some martyrs here. Yes, these are exceptions. Your average person, which we're referring to, is not willing to die for his beliefs. He may scream about it, he may argue about it, but he's not willing to die. But a Jew has the power within him. I'm not saying every Jew is willing to die for it, but they do have the power within them to die despite the suffering and agony they'll have to go through just for the sake of something that they're very, very illiterate about. They don't know much about God. They don't know much about the Torah. They don't even know much about what makes them Jewish. But they're willing to sacrifice their life. And HaTanya concludes this section by saying, rather they suffer martyrdom without any knowledge and reflection, but as if it were absolutely impossible for them to renounce the one God and without any reason or hesitation whatsoever. This is because the one God illuminates and animates the entire nefesh, which is part of that soul they have, through being clothed in its faculty of chokhmah, which is beyond any graspable and understood knowledge or intelligence. In so many words, it's impossible to understand this power within each Jew if they choose to utilize it. So this gives us a little more clarity about the strength. But perhaps the next story will give us even more. We are meant to be a light unto the nations, not to follow their misguided practices. Remember, every Jew has to remember that he's a Jew and she's a Jew. We don't celebrate non-Jewish holidays, even if they seem harmless. It's a zilzul, disrespect to the Torah, and could lead to chilul HaShem, desecration of God's name. Stick to our holy Torah and our own holidays. That's the path of a true Jew.